Welcome to the Art of Conversation with Noelle McAlinden, the first in a series of authentic conversations with fellow artists and creatives in unique arts and cultural settings. I'm curious and concerned about the future of the arts and the cultural sector. We're here at the beautiful Buttermarket Craft and Design Centre in the island town of Enniskillen. I'm about to join good friends Anne McNulty and Ken Ramsey and discuss how they have been getting on with their businesses and their practice and how they feel about coping with COVID. So join us in the art of conversation, promoting culture and arts all year round.
Hello, welcome to the Art of Conversation here on Culture Night, September the 18th, 2020. Join me in what is the first, I hope, of many authentic conversations with creative artists and craftspeople here in the Buttermarket in the island town of Enniskillen. As we celebrate Culture Night here in Enniskillen, my concern is when we come into the Buttermarket here, we're celebrating Culture Night during a pandemic. We are hosting here over 21 businesses of artists and makers and creatives who spend their livelihood and make their living here. My concern is, during the pandemic, how can we support artists, not just in Culture Night, to celebrate what they do, but also all year round. Ken, we know each other nearly 30 years. I was saying that to Anne when I first came to Enniskillen. You and Anne were probably the first friends I got to know in the arts and cultural sector here. So I know you're the two of you are cultural champions in my book, not just of the Buttermarket but in general here in the community. So
it's nice, thank you.
It's great to be here. And we're in Ramsey picture framing. So here's Mark as well, and we've Scott in the background there as well. And this is where you do all of your framing pretty much, and I know this is where I come to get my work framed as well, but you also have a business downstairs.
Yes, we have.
As well. So do you want to tell us a wee bit about the business?
Well, we have the picture framing here, and that framing we frame for artists, for ordinary people, family photographs, exhibitions. We ship art, send it out, and then downstairs we have artist materials, all kinds of artist materials, and we also help artists with their materials and how to develop their art, the skills, the practice of their art, and yeah, and that's we're pretty busy with that. Even through coronavirus, we've been busy with it. It was difficult, but we've managed systems of how to work through it, screens and masks and whatever, and in fact a lot of artists have been painting during the lockdown, and the boys were in furlough, but I came in on my own and framed work so that artists could get their work out and their artwork out to customers. So we really haven't stopped working.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
It was difficult at the start because we weren't sure of our financial situation, but we weren't entitled to government funding at the start, but we lobbied hard because we were a thing called industrially rated. And we weren't included in the first tranche of funding, but lots of workshops like mine and artists were in that. So we lobbied quite hard and we managed to get, and thank goodness they stormed to the assembly. They allowed or released money for small workshops like ours. So that was a lively, and that kept us alive.
And like, it was a big commitment because you have to buy in, large quantities of materials and canvases.
Yeah. Well, you have to buy off, you have to pay your suppliers that you already have bought stuff from.
Yes.
And then you have to keep your workshop going because the costs still go on. And then you have to buy stock to keep into the future.
Yes.
So the funding was just kept that going, and made sure our suppliers survived as well.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
and we buy from manufacturers as well. We make frames here, but we also buy the materials, not ready-made frames, but moulding to make frames.
Yes.
And we do that, and thank God all the local ones have survived.
And I don't say this lightly when I say it, Ken, because you also provide a mentoring service for lots of artists who come here, particularly those of us that are in panic mode when it comes to exhibitions. Because I know you've installed and not only framed but installed exhibitions of mine and many others. And I remember very clearly there was a whole row of us here one day, long time ago, where we were all at different stages of panic. And I think your background as a fireman working in the emergency services, I think, has probably held you in good stead during this time, you know.
I mean, I wouldn't say it to artists outright, but you know, really, when you're in emergency services, you see things, and it's a matter of life and death, and sometimes it's really desperately sad and heartbreaking. And when you come in here and someone's moaning and complaining about a frame, you kind of think, yeah, that's important, but
put it in perspective.
Put it in perspective. But we're not. We understand artists, and we know we just need the right to say, look, you concentrate on your art, get your painting finished. We'll make sure the frame's ready, and we've never let anyone really down yet. We have and we will turn around and say, look, we'll deliver it and we'll put it up on the wall, because artists are, I mean, they're just concentrating on the work, and it's not too much panic. It's just, you know, did they give themselves enough time to do the exhibition, or they worry, is their work good enough, you know, and is it professional enough, and does it look good, and will it sell? And we say, yes, it's good, you know. And if there's something that's, you know, we'll say, maybe that one there is not going in the exhibition, or we'll give them an opinion on it, you know.
Yes.
And that's, it is a mentoring service.
It is.
You know? And we also have lots of students coming in, and lots of people coming in saying, I'd love to be an artist, you know.
Yes. And you've had a lot of placements here. And
we do.
You've nurtured and mentored lots of young people who are interested in the industry.
Yeah, we have
as
artists,
well.
literally artists who've worked in here now. Mark's brother Peter worked here. He's painting in America?
Yes.
In Texas. And we have
past people of mine,
in England, and a past pupil of yours.
Yes.
You set him on his way anyway.
Yes.
And he's now a full-time artist in Texas. So, and doing well. And we have Mark done his work experience here, and we have a young girl come in here as a student, and she has her own business in England and doing heavy metal band T-shirts and plays in a heavy metal band.
Yeah.
So we have even a young guy come in here, and he's a filmmaker in London, and his father was an architect here in Enniskillen. So we have a wide variety, and it's still going on as we speak. We have people coming in, you know.
And you've also as well, Ken, you know, you've curated exhibitions of international quality. You have supported artists install their work all over the world, and you've worked in galleries of hugely significant success.
Before we came settled in Ireland, we did. The last gallery we worked in was a gallery called the Arnold Feeney Gallery in Bristol, and it's a very influential gallery and a beautiful gallery inside. But we learned that it wasn't funded by the Arts Council, so you had to live on your wits and still present something top class.
Yes.
And we carried that forward to artists, saying, you know, do the best you can with the resources you've got, and then you can rest easy at night and think, I've done the best I can. And that's satisfying when artists come in and say, you know, I've sold these, or I've sold this, or people like this, or people like that, you know.
And you've given great guidance as well in supporting not just the installation but the pricing of work as well. And you also showcase work here, because we're standing here in front of Scott's work, and Scott's there behind you. Scott, I see you've changed the glass as well, because I know you're going to be planning to exhibit shortly. We're planning to do this at some stage as well. And Mark, who's in the back there as well, Mark will be exhibiting. We're both exhibiting together in Mumbai as part of the drawing box, Mark, as well. And but these pieces here, Scott, the plan is to exhibit them in a space that the public can see, and with COVID restrictions at the minute it's limited, you know, but we are going to look at that. I know that's part of the plan. And Mark, you and I are both part of the drawing box, so your piece will be making its way to Mumbai as well, thanks to Diane, you know, so that'll be interesting as well. So we're in excellent company here. You know the fact that you are artists in your own right, you understand the vulnerability of what it's like to exhibit, and literally to make an exhibition of yourself as well. So there's a lovely sense of calm. I feel that you're also offering a counselling service, and of course you're totally involved in the creative and arts community here. You know, not just within the Buttermarket, but across, you know, Fermanagh as well.
Yeah, we support anyone.
Yes, and all art forms as well.
We support festivals and get involved in festivals.
Yes.
You know,
you've played a major
sculptures
part.
on top of mountains for the Beckett Festival. I mean, like, right on top of mountains for the Beckett Festival.
Yes.
And we've done work for the Five Live Festival. Filmmakers come in here, sometimes in a panic. Do you know who makes this or who gets that, or can you do this or can you do that? And if we can't do it ourselves, we send them to whoever can, because we have a knowledge base here as well. You know.
That's right.
And
I'm thinking about the Anthony Gormley tree.
Yeah, that was the one we put up top of the mountain. We put it up at top of Culkey Mountain above Mark's home house, and that was set into a bog. And Anthony Gormley's not the easiest man to work for, but he was quite content and happy with the work we done. And then we put the same sculptor the year after. We put it at Malin Head, which was really interesting because literally 3,000 miles behind it was New York and the Atlantic Ocean in between. So it was a lot of, the actors couldn't believe that they were standing on this space and the backdrop was the Atlantic Ocean. And I was saying if you could see far enough, it'd be New York, you know. So they thought it was great that their work was being seen in New York.
Brilliant, brilliant. We were talking to Anne earlier about the importance of being part of a community here, of artists and creatives here in the Buttermarket. So to actually have your business here and to be able to sell, you know, sell the pieces, and also to be able to enjoy the environment here and have your, you know, to enjoy the restaurant and all of that, it's very important.
Well, the Buttermarket's a community. It's not as well known as it should be, in my opinion. But this Buttermarket, our involvement in the Buttermarket started many years ago. We had some workshops in a yard which is down below East Bridge Street, but the new road swept that away. But Jerry Burns, the late Jerry Burns, clerk of the council, a man of great vision, used to come down and he'd say, I love this space, it's nice and quiet and peaceful. And then he came down one day and he said, look, Ken, he said, I just persuaded the council to buy the Buttermarket and usually be first in. And which we are in. We may not have been first in, but he had this vision of the yard, and this is part of his legacy, along with many other things in Fermanagh, the theatre and Marble Arts Caves and the Forum, all sorts. Different era in councils now, and they probably don't have the same freedom to movement and a lot more restrictions on them, but also financial, you know, restrictions and stuff. But so we remember people like with Jerry with great fondness, and we carry on that ethos that he set up. We're a small community, a creative community, and to get a group of creative people together and get them all to agree is like, you know, someone says like herding cats, but we all get on well and we all
support
work
each other
together and support each other, and if someone needs something, we will, if we've got it, we'll do it for them.
Was saying earlier that there's almost 50 people employed here in the Buttermarket itself.
Well, 50 people directly in here, between the restaurant, Bridget's and Sharon's restaurant, Rebecca's restaurant, and between
The artists.
Artists, and we have
Yes.
we have 1, 2, 3 full time. We have Patricia, whose work you see here. She works part time.
That's right, Patricia Martinelli.
And then the stuff in the hall, that's her late husband's work.
Jeremy
Henderson, fabulous artist. So, and then each person has 1 or 2 people to, working on them.
Yes.
And then they have workshops at home.
Yes.
That support the workshops here.
Yes. Yes.
So, and also it's a place where people come in and just sit down and just relax. Very few places in city centres where you can just sit down, away from traffic, away from noise, and just sit down and relax,
And the fact they have indoor and outdoor spaces, and
We have.
for me it's a very important part, because again, coming down to Enniskillen, and particularly during COVID as well, to know that, to have a cup of coffee is a bit of a luxury now.
Yeah, it
to
is.
meet up with friends is an absolute luxury, no
Yeah.
doubt. But the whole idea of coming to a space to have authentic conversations with good friends and like-minded people, it's a really, really special place here,
Well, we
and a
have
diamond, actually, a jewel in the
Yeah,
crown of what is
it is.
Enniskillen.
We have, you could call them Buttermarket. We have several Buttermarket clubs where people meet,
Yes.
family and friends, and just sit outside and talk.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and they can do it safely within
Yes.
the coronavirus restrictions.
That's right. That's right.
And meet other people and talk across tables, across to other groups of people. So we're lucky to have it in the times we have. Especially in the times we have.
Will you- So we're in your workshop here in the Buttermarket,
Yeah.
and you design, make, fire and sell your work from here.
I do indeed,
And
yeah.
I've known you nearly 30 years at this
Mm.
stage, and I've always loved your work. In fact, I have this collection here, the yellow tableware that you have. You told me earlier that your art and design teacher was Kathleen Bridle.
She was, yeah. She came out of retirement to teach our A-level group because I don't know what happened to teach her. She retired or whatever, but anyway, Kathleen Bridle came out of retirement to teach us for about 2 years, and she was great. She really inspired me, and she taught us life drawing and all sorts of things that we mightn't have done beforehand. So it was great. Yeah.
So how did you develop an interest in ceramics and pottery?
Well, I'd never done any until I went to art college, and in those days, in the first year you did a bit of everything.
Yes.
Went to each department, and when I went into ceramics, I just loved it. The smell of the clay and the feel of the clay, and just liked it. It was.
And your lecturer, who were
Was
your
Peter
lecturers?
Meanley and Tony McLeay. So I met her recently.
Right.
We were at one of the Beckett Festival events down in the caves, and she was there as well with her
Lovely.
husband Jan.
And
So-
did she recognise you?
Oh, she did. She looks the same as she looked at college years ago.
I believe Kathleen Bridle has a piece of your work that she kept. as
She
well.
has. I heard that her niece was organising an exhibition of hers in the museum, and she told me that she kept
And
one of my lino prints, I think it was.
And you've exhibited all over Europe. And throughout the island of Ireland and Paris. You mentioned there as well earlier. And you have you're working now on pieces that are actually, they're going to be these mugs here.
They're
isn't that it?
mugs, the mugs, yeah. Well, I threw them yesterday, so they're not quite dry enough to turn the base, because I have to turn the base and put a foot rim on it. So.
And then your colour, because your
and
work
then
is very distinctive.
Yeah. So I have to put handles on these after they're turned, and then they're biscuit fired, the first firing, which is a soft firing, and then they're glazed and painted. These pots here have been glazed, but I haven't painted them yet. So,
and we're going to see next door after this, we're going to see some of your pieces, because you mentioned that you love the discipline of doing the tableware.
Yeah.
And then the Raku pieces, the sculptural pieces, they're
yeah, well, the functional pieces have to work.
Yes.
But the Raku, you can have a wild sort of piece, which I do have sometimes. Big pieces. And I like putting lids on things and extensions, because it makes the whole thing more mysterious. And
yes, yes, and we'll see some of the beautiful pieces.
Yeah, they're next door.
And the Arts Council, you've pieces in the Arts Council collection.
I have, yeah.
Which is a lovely tribute, and you've exhibited as well in the Royal Ulster Academy.
I did, yeah.
As well. And then I'm really intrigued as well, because ceramics and painting are my background, and you've managed to make really great use of this space. You have 2 kilns, are both kilns functioning kilns?
Oh yeah,
yes.
yeah.
So I mean the temperature must get really hot in here. You've managed very well.
It's great in the winter, but in the summer it can be quite warm.
The benefits of being here is that you are within a community of artists.
Yeah, which is good, and it's just a nice space to work in, and people can come in, the general public can come in, and they like coming in and buying stuff from the maker, and they like the fact that I write in Enniskillen on the bottom of each one, especially if they're taking them abroad or something, and you know, just all that. That kind of thing. Yeah, and
because you have a whole range of tableware, you know, from egg cups, you know, cheese board, you know.
Egg cups, big platters, that size, and large bowls. And
yes.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things too. People ask me to make, and I kind of design it in my style and do it that way. Yeah.
I'm very privileged now to be building up a collection of your work, Anne, including the beautiful Raku piece as well, and we'll see that next door, and of course you're next door to your other half.
I am indeed, yeah.
And is that a benefit from a business point of view, as well as you know a lifelong partnership?
It is, but I don't see him a lot during the day because he's working in his own studio and I'm in here, and we sometimes get lunch together or whatever. Yeah.
And then you both share a space, an exhibition space next door called Raku and Canvas.
Yeah, well, it's mainly the exhibition space would mainly be for the Raku, and the canvas is for the artist materials that that Ken would sell.
Because I know I would buy all my art materials from Ken, and he also has done my framing over the years as well.
Yeah.
And the pair of you are, in my mind, real cultural champions in supporting not just the artists and creatives here, but all of us that come in at different stages of shall we say, panic and concern if we're preparing for an exhibition, or we need advice, or just wisdom, you know, as well. So that's lovely. I suppose, Anne, during COVID, it's been really interesting because it's been a very challenging time, and obviously you were closed as a Buttermarket.
We were, and for the first few weeks or nearly months, it was very hard to know what to do, what you could do, or whatever. So I didn't really make or do anything, and but then when I came back in July, I came into the workshop, and it just went mad. There were people coming in all the time. There were visitors, and there were local people ordering stuff and getting stuff, and
so business
which was great. Business was good.
Great.
Yeah, so it was just like an ordinary summer.
Yes, and you've obviously had to make arrangements and changes to, you know, your entrance,
yeah,
socially distancing, wearing masks,
Yeah.
Well, you wear masks most of the time anyway when you're
Well, I do. I wear
you're
a
working.
dust mask
Yes.
when I'm doing the glazing.
And then adjacent to this, you also have your display area as well, where visitors come in and you've the hand sanitizer and all of that as well.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, it's part of life now, isn't it?
It is,
That you
it
just
is.
do it automatically.
And given that we are here on Culture Night, you know, I suppose we're really very, I suppose, dedicated to the fact that we should be celebrating arts and culture all year round. You know, that's really the key point that we wanted to make as well. So,
Well, I don't think we have to stop because of the pandemic. Just do it whatever way it comes, if it comes virtually or whatever, you know. I think it's good for people and good for their mental health and everything as well.
Yes. And you've quite a disciplined ritual in terms of your making time, Anne. You're usually in here what time? You know, in terms of, you know, your day. What would your day look like to work?
Well, aim to be in about 9:30 well, we used to finish at 5:30, but now we finished 5 o'clock, half an hour earlier.
Yes, and that does make a difference,
And it does
it?
make a difference. You can go home, well, at this time of year, you're going home in the daylight.
Yeah, and I suppose, Anne, too, you are making in this space, so when people come in, they are in effect curious, obviously, to find out more about you and about what you're doing. But you're also, you know, exchanging with them, which takes time as well. So, you know, you're
well, that's part of the job, the sales.
Yes,
yeah, I
yes.
wouldn't be here only for them. Yeah.
So you're pleased to be here, Anne. You're pleased to be.
Oh
in
yeah, I think the Buttermarket's a great place. You know, the fact that you can have your studio and your work showroom in the same place, and people can come in and they can ask about how things are made, and
Yes.
if they want something special, they will ask as well, and I'll try my best to make what they want.
So Anne, we're in what you call Raku and Canvas.
Yeah.
And this is a shared space that you have between yourself and Ken.
Okay. Yeah.
And we are looking at some of your beautiful Raku pieces. Do you want to tell us a little bit about those?
Well, first of all, Raku means happiness in Japanese, and yeah, and well, these, some of them are hand thrown, those ones there, and these are extruded.
Yes.
And yeah, that's mainly it, yeah. And then they're biscuit fired like these ones here.
Yes.
And, yeah, they're small ones are ready to be glazed. And then I glaze them and put the pattern on them. I fire them in a gas kiln to about over 1,000 degrees centigrade anyway. And then I have to open the kiln while it's still burning. Well, turn off the gas, but the kiln is still hot. And I wear protective clothing. And I use tongs to lift the pot from the kiln and put it into a bin with sawdust in it. And then it ignites, and I throw on some more sawdust or wood shavings. And then I get a good flame going, and then I put the lid on the bin that I put it into and leave it to smoke and smoulder there. And then I take it out and I have to wash it with a Brillo pad, all the gunge off it.
You've done, I've seen you do live demonstrations down here, Anne, as part of some of the festivals over the years. You demonstrate the Raku process as well.
I made some small tea bowls, and well, that's how it started in Japan. They were making tea bowls, and one of them fell out of the kiln and rolled down on the grass and picked up all sorts of organic leaves and things like that, and they got some nice effects. So that's how it started. And then it was taken over by the Americans, and they years later obviously, and they used all sorts of wonderful different ways of doing it, and then it came over here, and we used to just really do it in college with a group of us, and you know, it was more for fun than anything. And then I started just making them myself. You know, there were...
I didn't realise that Raku meant happy, and we've used a number of your pieces to exhibit as part of the creative and cultural trails around the island town here of Enniskillen as part of the festivals as well. And these pair in particular, they remind me of a couple just dancing and swaying.
These two?
I just love them. And then you mentioned to me beforehand, the bird motif is very important to you, and you reproduce the bird motif.
I just love the birds. I just love birds.
These little tiles as well.
Yeah, all sorts of birds, and
so these are all for sale.
Landscape and things. Oh yeah.
All of these pieces are for sale, as well as your tableware, and people can order and commission pieces as well, in different sizes and scales, you know. So Anne and Ken, the whole point of this conversation, this authentic conversation with creative and cultural people who are working here in Enniskillen, is to meet in, you know, particularly interesting cultural spaces. So we're sitting outside in the courtyard, effectively, of the Buttermarket, and during these surreal times, I mean, you couldn't be in a better place.
You couldn't, because you can...
Yeah, we've got space, and we're outside.
Yeah.
And we're not locked into a workshop.
And yet your workshop's just...
And yet our workshop's here, beside us, just around us. And it's a growing space. Every now and then something will. This year it's been newly painted. We've had refurbishment.
Because it was a 19th century old buttermilk.
Yeah, Victorian market.
Buttermarket. Yes.
Yeah.
But
the original cast iron pillars are still there, and filled them in with glass.
Yes.
I mean, the glass wouldn't have been there.
Yeah, no, the glass.
And of course, Rebecca's coffee shop is a fantastic coffee shop run by Sharon, obviously, and her mum, and they do a brilliant job. Really,
lovely
really
homemade bread.
Homemade breakfast, dinner, and tea. It's a perfect place to eat.
Yeah.
And I suppose what has really worked very well is that families and friends, people who are artists and creatives. I know I come here to be nurtured and nourished by the artists and fellow creatives, but you can bring family and friends here as well. And I suppose it's one of the hidden gems here in Enniskillen that we want to celebrate on Culture Night.
Well, it lends itself to the arts very well because
it's in the centre of town, and it's quiet.
And yet not a lot of people know about it.
No.
You know.
But it's a good space because we have concerts in here.
Yes.
We have filmmakers come in here. We've had several times national news have been broadcast from here, and so people have meetings in here now. It's one of the safe spaces outdoors to have a meeting.
Absolutely, I see that. I see that.
So it's a space. We're people in the yard. We're quiet and we work away, do our own thing. But there's always something outside. You go out to the workshop, and there's something happening in the yard, meeting people you know, or like we're doing now.
Creative conversations.
Doing interviews and creative conversations, and everybody knows what's going on and respects that. So and encourages people, you know.
And of course, it's a performance space as well. We've used it quite a bit over the years for as a festival venue as well. And I suppose the other thing as well is, and you mentioned this earlier as well, that there are almost 50 people employed here. This is a combination of artists, creatives, painters, jewellery makers, you know, ceramicists, your picture framing business. We're drinking out of your lovely tableware, Anne, you know, and I'm an avid collector of that, you know, but it's really about celebrating, you know, made here, made in Fermanagh, you know, so cheers.
Cheers.
Not just in culture night, but all year round.